Guys, the 7th round of the FIDE World Chess Championship is finally over. And आज का game would probably be the most exciting game in this championship as of now. 7 rounds हो चुके हैं, sorry 6 rounds हो चुके हैं, and we currently have 3-3 score tied up. And Gukesh today with the white pieces opened with knight to f3. The Reti opening d5, g3, g6, d4, bishop g7, c4, c6, bishop g2. Now ये एक ऐसा opening है जो गुकेश को खेलना काफ़ी पसंद है, and he's playing it from a very young age. We see knight f6, he castles, and थोड़ा सा Catalan type का structure में convert हुआ, where there are plans with knight e5, there are castling plans, and there is knight d2 plans as well. Ding here castles. यहाँ पे गुकेश ने खेला rook e1, which is I think a novelty, and Ding replied with taking on c4. Abhi agar instead of taking on c4, if you would have seen something like bishop f5, it would have been a very simpler and calmer game. But he took on c4, allowing Gukesh to play e4 and taking this massive center. Then he played bishop g4. We see knight pd2 and c5. That's the first mistake of the game. अब तुम सोचो कि यहाँ पे क्या खेल सकते हैं. First idea is, first of all, we can play e5, we can play d5, but the problem with a move like e5 is black gets knight to d5. So instead of e5, a move like d5 is better because you're restricting the light squares and you're also gaining, like, you know, potential passer future में बन सकता है. You're controlling the center basically. And we see a move like e6, then we see h3, bishop takes knight, we see bishop into f3. अब हो क्या रहा है? Whenever the center is clarified, the pawn is protected and the c4 pawn falls. And we see takes, knight b7, and he took back on the pawn on c4. Now b5 move है, attacking the knight. Obviously you will defend it. He plays knight a3, attacking the pawn on b5. Ding replied with queen to b6. यहाँ पे bishop f4. Now look at this position. White has the bishop pair advantage, a bishop on f3, a bishop on f4, and these are really strong bishop. We see rook to e8, queen d2, now rook d8, now knight c2. अभी जो knight था जो कि, you know, it's on the side, on the rim of the board, now he wants to reposition it and maneuver it to a better square. Knight to f8, we see pawn to b4, and ये जो move है ना, that's an amazing move. Okay, basic idea क्या मैं तो समझाना चाहता हूँ. Whenever the pawn moves, or we see like taking on b4, we have knight b4 ideas, controlling the pawn, holding it. And also अगर c4 आता है, we play bishop e3, and basically we're trying to maneuver our pieces to much more better square. And also bring pressures. We have bishop c5 ideas, we have bishop d4 ideas in the position. We see queen to a6, and यहाँ पे चीज़ें थोड़ी downhill जानी start getting के लिए. We see bishop d4, take on e1, rook takes e1, and queen a2. Now rook to a1 attacking the queen. The queen goes to b3, and तुम देख रहे हो, there is a slight advantage for white. We see rook to a3, that's a great move attacking the queen. The queen went back, that's a check, king g2. Now rook to d7 defending the pawn. We could have still taken it, but okay, you'd like to play rook a5 and take this pawn instead. अगर तुम यहाँ पे rook पे pawn push करोगे, we'll just take the pawn. So no worries. We see queen to b3, and Gukesh here played rook b3 attacking the queen. And थोड़े बहुत repetition देखने को मिला, but obviously it's a very nice position for white. So he repeated twice, I think. Then he took on b5, and that's an amazing position. It's plus 1.3 ka advantage for white. Now we see queen d3. That's again a mistake. यहाँ पे the engine wants bishop to e3. Basically, if you take over here, we take it with the queen. With the bishop. Then we can reposition and fight in the diagonal. ऐसा कुछ plan था. But unfortunately, we don't see that. We see queen to f4, and that's a missed win. But it's still fine. It's a very human move. Now he took on c2. Our knight was hanging. Gukesh took the knight on f6. Now queen f5, and that's the best move in the position. You want to trade your queens. Gukesh took queen f5. We see g f5. The bishops are traded. Now, king g7, rook c5, putting pressure on the pawn on c4, knight to j6, it took the pawn, knight to e5, and that's basically a fork. Agar tum ye rook f4 खेलोगे, so then there is knight into f3, king f3, rook f3, and you lose the pawn. So he played rook to d4, but then there is knight c6, and now you're basically exploiting the pin. If you take here, your rook is hanging, and if you try to push, there is rook c4, and that would be a GG. So Gukesh को यहाँ पे rook f4 खेलना पड़ा, knight back to e7, holding the pawn, putting pressure over here as well. And now he played b5, Ding played king f6, bringing the king to the center, and rook went back. अब एक दिक्कत इस position में, if you want to play king over here, then there is a rook h4, and apparently your pawn on h7, that's, you have to part ways with them. So यहाँ पे we see pawn to h6 first, then king f1, and again another mistake. And तुम game में देख रहे हो, it's such a lovely game where people are making mistakes, inaccuracies, a miswin, and there is so much drama in the game, and that's really impressive. But again, at the same time, you don't expect the world champion and the world and challenger to make moves like that. But it is what it is. They don't have increment, and he played rook h4, attacking the pawn. अब यहाँ पे हमें देखने को बोला knight into d5. He took the pawn on h6. We got knight c3. Again, another mistake. And Gukesh had so much chances in this game. He had like +2, almost +3 advantage, but okay. And he find the best move, which is rook to c6, attacking the knight. And if you take the free pawn, that's completely losing, because you can't block. There is bishop d5 or rook d5, and you basically correct the knight. So obviously he won't do that. He played the best move, which is knight to e4. Now king to e1. Okay, अगर king e1 ना खेल के सीधा टेक कर लेते, that would have been better. But the best move in this position is apparently h4. You basically push your pawn, and somehow like pieces वगैरह deflect वगैरह होंगे, and you maybe get some pawns here and there. उतना depth में नहीं जाते, because yeah, it's way too much tough, but you basically get the idea of the position. So we see king to e1 from Gukesh, and there is f6, which is a very resourceful move. Basically, cut the access to the king side. So whenever there is a push, black can go and defend it, and whereas the rook can't really juggle around. Now he played h4. We see rook to d3, and that's the problem. We are hitting the bishop, and then another mistake with bishop to d1. We see f4, and this is a problem. He has to take, king takes, and तुम देख रहे हो, black ka king, Ding ka king is getting activated, and it's getting into a position where white has to worry about few moves. You can't really go like straight away play king e2, because there would be some check and you lose some material. Whereas in this position, the rook is holding it, but you have to be very careful. We see rook c4, then there was f5, rook b5. Again, यहाँ पे मैं बोल रहा था, king e2, you lose material, so you have to be very careful. We see king f3. Now bishop d1 check. The king went to g2. Rook b3, and यहाँ पे there is a trick. If you take this free pawn, this is completely losing after this bishop f3 check, and that's a lovely check there, and you lose. Sorry. Okay, why would you go there? Okay, you lose a ton of material, and that's losing. So he played rook to e5, threatening some sort of discovery check. We see f4 first, attacking the rook. The rook went back to e7. Now rook e3, blocking the potential file. Rook h7, putting pressure on the pawn. h5, knight went back, attacking the pawn. अब यहाँ पे Gukesh ने खेला rook to e5, potential pressure on the f5 pawn. He took with the knight. Rook takes f5. Now knight g3, putting pressure on the rook. Up rook f8, holding to this pawn. After rook b8, we see bishop a4. And honestly, ये position में this bishop is just like a pawn. You're just holding the pawn with your bishop, and तुम्हारे पास वो flexibility नहीं है to move around. Now we see king f3, pawn push, king f4, again pawn push, knight to e4. And तुम क्या करोगे honestly इस position में? He played bishop c2. Obviously you can't take it with the knight, and you have to be very careful. अगर तुम knight को मरवा दोगे यहाँ पे, so there are some chances where white gets some lead. Now we see rook to d8, attacking the knight. and there is king e5 holding on to the knight, bishop to b3, so that there are some f7 plan in the future. Now, knight f7, rook check, king took the pawn, and we see both these players bring their pieces to the center, and यहाँ पे हमें trade देखने को मिला of the rooks, bishop d5, knight there, and he took on b5, king b5, a6, king a6, and that's a draw due to insufficient material. You can't really checkmate with a bishop. अगर दो bishop होते, then it's not a draw. Gukesh can easily win. But okay, that's the game. Round 7 ended with a draw. मेरे thoughts वगैरह अगर तुम लोग पूछो तो I would say it was an amazing try from Gukesh, but हर गेम में देखने को मिला है Gukesh with the white pieces goes for a very nice opening approach, something dynamic, maybe some sort of early g4, and in this game we see a retty opening. But क्या होता क्या ना, Ding thinks for like an hour and he is always like 40-45 minutes down on the clock, and somehow things end up in certain way. Gukesh had to think for a lot time, and इसमें भी हुआ था. Gukesh made one move, I don't really remember what move was that, with only 2 seconds on the clock, and that just shows ki how Ding complicates the position. Obviously he's the world chess champion, so yeah, that's the game. And yeah, many more games to go. I think 50% of the world chess championship is over, and yeah, let me know what you think about round number 8. Gukesh would be playing with the black pieces, Ding with the white pieces, and I would see you guys in another video. Tab tak ke liye, bye bye. Kate Gaming signing off. Peace.